Welcome to ProBlogacy, your inside source for all things Prologue WoW. I'm your host, Vero, and welcome back to Episode 0. This is Part 2 of Episode 0 with our interview with FireFighter. We were getting so many good answers and so many details and whatnot on what's in progress. We wanted to keep going in that vein and get some more juicy details, so we broke this up into two sections. So I would like to welcome back the admin and project leader of Prologue Legacy, FireFighter. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back for the second part. I believe the introductions are already done in the first part, so how about if we get right to work and get those questions out the door?
Okay, moving right along, we had some questions come in on some of the more technical aspects of Prologue development and where Legacy is going. So, are we planning on a weekly patch update kind of system for the official phase? Or a weekly, monthly update on zones? What are we looking at for regular update intervals?
I assume that means in regards to patch updates and releases like we had in the last phase where we had 1.3 and 1.31 and 1.32. I obviously can't commit to a schedule like we will have them out every week or we will have them out every 2 weeks because it's all really going to depend on what the players do. If the players are not doing anything and they're just sitting in Stormwind having coffee, then there's nothing to update. So the more the players do, the more we will attempt to update to reflect their progress in the world.
Okay, moving on. The Guild Forge system that we have seen in previous phases, are we going to be seeing something like that return for Legacy, or is that going the way of the dinosaur?
We will see something along those lines return. The old Guild Forge that we were using in the previous phase was set up for community feedback and then staff oversight in the form of the Guild Scholars. Unfortunately, those who were Guild Scholars were so secret that I didn't even know who they were. That's how secret they were. So it was really hard to tell them to do their job when we didn't know who they were. So that's why we decided to get rid of that near the end of 1.3.2, I believe it was, where we just discarded it completely. We will see some form of check and balance to make sure that non-role-playing related guilds don't get through, but it won't be as severe and hopefully it won't be as red tape-ish as previous systems.
I know I'm not the only one that's glad to see that we're going to be taking the good and getting rid of the not so good with that and building something going forward.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that there should be some oversight because guilds do carry a lot of weight, but the oversight we had previously was just not handled properly.
Very good. Always a topic of contention with Prologue is the default conflict resolution system, or PvP and Execute. Is that something that's being reviewed and reevaluated for Legacy, or is that something that worked and we're going to keep it that way and we're just going to make minor changes?
Well, it's a tough call because I know no matter what decision we pick, one side of the community will not prefer that system. We will have rollers who don't like PvPers, we'll have emoters that don't like rollers, and we'll have PvPers who just want to stack resilience and kill everybody. There is no one definitive answer that will make everybody happy, and unfortunately the game mechanics, without extensive reworking or extensive add-ons, really only result in PvP. I mean, we could have character sheets in a third-party add-on like Griffin Heart items or something like that, but it would be insanely hard to keep track of. Almost impossible. And it'd probably be easier for people to cheat and make themselves invincible than it would be at PvP. Now, that being said, PvP and executing or killing somebody are two different things. Our plans for PvP are to bring in the stats that we had wanted to introduce in 1.4 that the two individual teams had worked on and balanced. And those stats are based on full Wrathful PvP gear with best in slot trinkets and enhancements and gems. And everybody will be getting a PvP trinket because that was pivotal to balancing PvP, was to have a PvP trinket of some kind. So that will hopefully bring the stats in line so that we don't have prot pallies and prot warriors just dominating everything. Now, as for execute as an option is pretty much the only option you had if you got somebody down. You either walked away or execute. We do want to bring in more options other than execute. And I know there has been discussion on the forums such as an injury or a rob or a knockout or any number of combinations other than killing somebody. And those are definitely all on the table. And it will have to come down to what the coders are comfortable coding and making viable. We don't want any half-ass systems, for the lack of a better term. We want something that's going to work.
Okay, that pretty much covers most of the questions we had in the technical end of things. Some real general questions, stuff that didn't really fit into another category. First off, what kind of tools are you looking at giving the players so that they have at their disposal when it comes to creating their own storyline? Say they've got something that they want to do that doesn't need a weaver or a storyteller. What kind of tools are going to be at their disposal to handle those things on their own?
Well, the APT system was something that I think worked really well in the last phase. So you don't necessarily need a weaver or a storyteller to build your camp. You can have your own tents, your own fire, your own stools, your own chairs. You can build your own small society to fit your needs as an individual. So we want to expand those tools to give players more options that they can work with without needing a weaver or a storyteller hovering there doing everything for them. It will be very focused on what the players can accomplish on their own.
Speaking of weavers, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, the Weaver system will be making a return in Prologue Legacy as it stands right now, something that you said the development is focusing on, especially using Sandbox to help beta test some of the things that you were planning in the prior phases. So what kind of specific changes can you tease us with? What are we going to be looking at?
We want to give the lower level weavers better tools that the mid-tier weavers received. So basically, if you think about, your weavers rank 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, without going into details, because it's a huge point of development right now, if we basically cut out the bottom 2 ranks and started rank 1 weavers at rank 2 or rank 3, they will be getting more tools to start with. They'll be getting more spawnable items, more control over NPCs, more control over the environment at an earlier stage versus having to grind through the levels to a later stage where we didn't see very many higher end weavers because people just couldn't get there because they weren't able to use their lower level weaver tools to the ability that they wanted to. So while we were giving the players tools, we were also handcuffing them because we weren't giving them enough tools or the right tools. We want to correct that somehow. And so the whole Weaver system is getting changed around. So different tools will be accessed earlier. You'll have more spawnable items earlier. You'll have more control over lower end NPCs. I mean, we don't want a Weaver level 1 walking into Orgrimmar and controlling the war chief. But he can certainly control an NPC in the marketplace for his group that he's traveling with.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. I had a little bit of experience with the Weaver system in the last phase, and it was a blast, but I understand where some of the concern was that it was limiting in ways at the lower levels. I'm glad to see that that's on your radar on fixing. How about guilds going to war with each other and factions at war with each other? Are we going to be looking at any sort of system that helps deal with those conflicts between guilds and factions?
Well, obviously some kind of real-time strategy system would be amazing, but I think that is the proverbial Prologue unicorn that we will always talk about and probably never see.
No tower defense?
No, this won't be Age of Empires in Warcraft.
Okay.
How we're going to deal with guilds and factions going to war with each other is still something that is on the drawing board, because a lot of that has to deal with occupying land and space, and we don't have a system for that. There is no ownership system. There is no, this land is my land, that's your land, and I want your land, and I've got more people than you. There's no system for that. That's probably one of the biggest development points that we have yet to discuss at this point. So I have really no speculation on how that will be dealt with. We do want to come up with a system, but it's something that's still in discussion.
I'm still hoping for the tower defense unicorn, but we'll go with that for now. All right, so death system. Everyone always has the best idea in the world for the death system, and their idea is going to revolutionize the way death is going to work on Prologue. What's in the works? What's being tossed around?
We hope with the expansion of the execute command into other alternatives that have been discussed, such as injure, knockout, rob, loot, any derivative thereof, that it will hopefully take the pressure off of the death system and make death still a viable fear, but not something that's going to be mandatory for everybody who can't click the buttons fast enough or doesn't have their keybinds set up properly. So in regards to the death system, I'm not going to say what it's going to be, whether it's going to be a Phase C system or a Cold Hatred system or a Mark of the God system or a Phase A system. Our first goal is to evaluate the alternatives to death, and then from there decide how harsh death is going to be. If there's lots of alternatives to death, then maybe death will be, cold and uninviting. If there's no alternatives, then maybe it'll be more forgiving.
Honestly, I've never experienced the death system myself. I was very, very lucky to never have a character die on Prologue. Please don't anybody take that as an invitation. I will cry like a little girl. So I would rather not experience it, but I have all the trust that it's going to be something interesting and worthwhile. Is there going to be less of a focus on storyteller managed events and more focus on the reactionary type events, like you were talking about earlier with players showing up and whether they did or not, that was going to determine what happened?
We found that storytellers, when being subjected to being at the beck and call of the community, got burnt out very fast. So some of our storytellers were doing 5 to 6 events an evening, running around all over the world, catering to different guilds. And that is a good way to breed very unhappy storytellers.
Yeah.
So we want to give the storytelling tools to the players so that they can tell their own story, and that the storytellers will take a more worldly approach. The storytellers will be very much like how everybody thought weavers were going to work back in Phase C, where you don't know there's a weaver around until all of a sudden an NPC is talking to you. That will be more of how the storytellers will work, in a hidden dungeon master kind of way. They won't be actively out there running events, 6, 7, 8 events a night for people, because they will burn out, and then we'll have to hire more, and then that'll be a whole other issue in itself because we just hired 10 more. So we hope to have them focus more on the larger storylines that the players will interact with, rather than being there every time the player needs them to do something. Those powers will be given to the players to look after themselves through the expanded Weaver system.
Excellent. That sounds a little bit more immersive to me, but that's just me personally. Next question. It's such a hot topic, and each side is so fervent in their belief on what the answer to this should be, and it has become rather heated recently. When do we get polar bears back?
Polar bears is a very heated topic. A lot of people seen it as the catalyst to the downfall of the old forms, the hostility, the focus of the hostility. I don't think it was that so much as it needs to be, I wouldn't say toned down. I mean, everybody needs an outlet. Everybody has an outlet to vent their frustrations, to tell a joke. It's the water cooler of Prologue. And I understand that a lot of people are unnerved by there not being a polar bear section. And I see the off-topic section is slowly turning into a polar bear section, which I did not want to see happen. So we will most likely be readdressing the polar bear section once we're done with our sandbox development work, before we start our legacy work. So it won't be today, and it won't be tomorrow, but it will definitely be relooked at in the not too distant future.
It's still tabled, it's not completely shelved.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, another hot topic. These general ones are just hot topics left and right. What are the plans regarding class race combinations? I mean, I can roll up a gnomish mage, but I can't roll up a gnomish druid, which that one I could see making sense. But I can't roll up a blood elf warrior, which kind of seems a little bit on the silly side. Warrior would seem like a class that every race would have access to. Are we going to be sticking to what the coding within Blizzard gives us access to? Or are we going to be opening up combinations that have made sense in the past? The Blood Elf Warrior, the Dwarven Shaman, the Troll Warlock, etc., etc., etc.
Opening those race class combos is certainly something we will be looking at. I think we were pretty close to a good system back in 1.3. Maybe not perhaps Gnome Paladins, but, that was a bit of a stretch. It could go either way, realistically, seeing as how every other race in the Alliance, the exception of the Night Elves, could get Paladins. I don't see why the Gnomes wouldn't. So, anyways, I'm going to restart this question because I rambled.
I was totally about to interrupt with, so you mean I get to have my Gustav's...
Race class combinations is certainly something we're going to open up and explore based on what seems right on IC parameters. We did a lot of tweaks in the previous incarnations of Prologue where we did allow things like Blood Elf Warriors, and we did allow Tauren Priests, and while we did allow Gnomish Paladins, maybe the pendulum had swung slightly too far at that point. I could see Gnomish Priests, and then maybe working to Gnomish Paladins for those that really, really, really are dedicated to role-playing. A Gnome Paladin. I'm not saying that they're off the table. I'm not saying they're on the table, but we will look at things objectively, and we'll open some discussion with the community. Obviously, that's a community-driven discussion, and I've been trying to embrace the community as much as I can for making some decisions. And we will definitely put class race combinations into the community section in the future. Not right now, so don't go start making threads about it. But in the future, that will be a topic for the community to discuss.
You heard it first here, folks. Gustav Lightgear is on his way to becoming a thing.
A techno paladin to go with your techno druid.
Right there. Oh, the duo that could happen there. I'm gonna lobby for it because that.
Well, you could have a gnome druid in bear form being the paladin's pet. I'm just saying, it works on Moonguard. It might work on Prologue.
Oh, the gnomish paladin's mount is the bear. Love it, love it. Okay, we're starting the lobby for it tomorrow. I'm writing up the thread in my head right now, just to give you another headache to worry about. I'm kidding, of course.
At this point, I own stock in Tylenol and aspirin.
Fair enough. I would imagine so. I do not envy you your job. It seems like a lot of fun, but the headaches are just ridiculous. All right, well that kind of wraps up all of the serious questions that I had taken a look at. A couple of the sillier ones that I really needed your input on, just because, and I didn't. Fair warning, everyone listening. I gave him no warning on any of these, so he doesn't know what I'm asking anything. So enjoy. There is a correct answer to this question, and I will be grading you on this. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
I believe the scientific answer was 137.
Scientific schmientific. The correct answer is 1, 2, 3, crunch, 3.
3.
3. Just 3. Ask the owl.
I do think there was some pole rigging in that, perhaps.
Owls win everything, just saying.
All right, so I learned something today. 3 licks to the center of a Tootsie Pop. What's
there you
next?
Go. Who let the dogs out? Who?
I'm going to say Slob did. He let the dogs out.
You know what? I'm not going to argue that one. I had an answer for you, but we'll go with Slob. Mancrick's wife, where is she?
I never played an orc, so I don't know. I had an orc account in retail. You might remember him. And I think he was level 3. And that's as far as I got with leveling my orc.
I think I do remember him. Now this one I completely forgot that this question was asked too, so I'm going off of spur of the moment memory here. I want to say she was out in the Badlands between Crossroads and what was the name of the Tauren village that got decimated in Cataclysm?
Oh, Camp T.
Yes, Camp Tarajo. She was somewhere between Crossroads and Camp Tarajo, and this was before Cataclysm dropped. There was a quest that you could get where you actually found her body. So there's
that's good, because I don't think I got my orc out of the Valley of Trials.
Oh, wow. All right, I think that basically covers everything. I really appreciate you playing along there at the end, those last ones. I had to throw them in there. They were too good to pass up, so thank you very much. Also, just thank you in general for your candor on all of this. I know you're a very, very, very busy guy with everything that's going on, and I appreciate, and I'm sure everyone appreciates you taking time out of your day to come in and answer some of these questions with me. I look forward to speaking with you again in the future regarding the progressing development of Prologue in general and Legacy in specific. And as we wrap things up, Mr. Firefighter, is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, I would like to just thank everybody once again for the rally that we've seen as the old Prologue, for lack of a better term, died. Again, without pointing fingers or rehashing that whole dark moment in Prologue's history, I think how the community came together really honestly gave me the strength to keep going with this project, because I was honestly very close to retiring as well, but I am invigorated at the ambition and the energy that the community is giving off as we work on this development. And I certainly hope it's not going to be 315 days of development. I'm looking at a lot faster development period than the last phase. So thank you very much for everything that the community has done to help us all through this. And hopefully we'll have a great server when it's done.
I have no doubt that we will. Firefighter, again, thank you very much for stopping in. You have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon. We're looking forward to seeing the launch of all the various different projects that are being worked on, and have a good one and safe journeys.
Thank you. We'll see you in the next episode.